This morning, Prime Minister Keir Starmer took the most daring political step Britain has witnessed in 3 centuries. He openly confronted King Charles III, and what follows may spell the end of the British monarchy as we have known it. If you want to grasp the truth behind the biggest political earthquake currently shaking the United Kingdom, don't look away, because events are unfolding with extraordinary intensity. This is what really happened. 3 days ago, the King did something unprecedented in the history of the modern monarchy. He secretly invited Nigel Farage, along with several key figures of Reform UK, to Windsor Castle. 2 hours passed without a single handshake and not a single photograph leaked out. What began as a discreet exchange has now set the entire British political scene ablaze. Sources close to the royal family confirm that it was Charles himself who requested the meeting after reading the constitutional reform petition submitted by Reform UK. The document, entitled Restoring British Democracy, caught the King's attention because it highlighted concerns that Parliament was overreaching its powers and that cracks were appearing in traditional institutions. And then, matters began to spiral out of control. During the private discussion held in the King's study, Charles is said to have uttered a line that turned the situation on its head. Perhaps it is time. Westminster needed a different way of thinking. With just 12 words, Britain was plunged into a constitutional crisis unseen since the abdication of Edward VIII in 1936. The meeting had originally been intended to remain strictly confidential. By tradition, the royal family must remain at arm's length from any political discussions, whether formal or informal. Yet within less than 2 days, word began to leak to the press. The Times was the first to break the story, followed by a flood of reports from the major media outlets. The leak did not come from Reform UK, of course not, as they had every reason to keep matters under wraps. Instead, suspicion has fallen on Downing Street itself. Possibly a group of Labour MPs hoping to embarrass Starmer by revealing that the King was conversing with his political opponents. If that was indeed their intention, it backfired spectacularly. When Starmer learned of it, he was furious. Those present at yesterday's emergency cabinet meeting described him as completely losing his composure. According to Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, Keir Starmer paced relentlessly up and down the cabinet room as though possessed. Then came the moment that may well define, or even end, his premiership. He slammed his hand down hard on the cabinet table and shouted, "If Charles wants to dabble in politics, I'll show him what politics really looks like." Starmer declared that the monarchy must serve Parliament, not the other way round. He seemed to have forgotten his place. But the matter did not end there. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson later revealed that Starmer pressed on with a long-winded speech, bluntly attacking the monarchy. 300 years of constitutional tradition. Nothing more than a clique of aging aristocrats in gaudy costumes playing dress-up. It's 2025 now, not the 18th century. Starmer did not hesitate to proclaim that if they wanted a confrontation, he was ready. Yet even that flash of fury shattered boundaries that British politics had never crossed before. Never in modern history had a Prime Minister openly denounced the sovereign in such terms. Not even during the most fraught political crises of the last century. Within hours, leaks from the cabinet had spread. By evening, all the major news outlets confirmed from multiple sources that Starmer had indeed made the shocking remarks. A cascade of striking headlines followed. The Times ran with, "The Prime Minister's rage, Starmer declares war on the Crown." Daily Mail, "Starmer and the Republican Revolution." The Guardian reported a constitutional crisis as the Prime Minister assailed the monarchy. The Sun dispensed with subtlety. Starmer loses his temper with the King. Yet the gravest damage was not on the front pages, but on social media, where Britons reacted with shock and anger almost instantly. Barely 6 hours after the story broke, the hashtag Protect the Crown had surged to the #1 spot worldwide. Pro-monarchy accounts unleashed a torrent of fierce criticism, defending King Charles and branding Starmer a traitor. Old clips of him were dredged up with captions like, "This is what happens when Republicans take power." Memes of Starmer wielding a guillotine or portrayed as Oliver Cromwell flooded Twitter and TikTok. It was not only staunch conservatives who struck back. Loyal Labour supporters, especially older working-class voters in traditional strongholds, expressed deep unease at Starmer's words. A telling example was Margaret Thompson, a 68-year-old retired teacher from Liverpool who had always backed Labour. She posted a TikTok video voicing her dismay, which unexpectedly drew over 2.3 million views in just one day. This was an alarming signal for Labour. Just 18 hours after the scandal erupted, YouGov conducted an emergency poll. Results showed that 73% of Britons believe Starmer had gone too far in attacking the monarchy. Labour's approval ratings plunged overnight, from 42% down to just 28%. The collapse was even starker in Labour's heartlands, where support fell by as much as 68%. Voters there said they no longer trusted Starmer's judgment. Most troubling of all, nearly half, 45%, of those who had previously voted Labour were reconsidering their support for the party. This is not merely a minor fluctuation in the polls. It is the kind of shock that can end a political career, or even alter the political landscape entirely. Yet what worries observers most is what comes next in this unfolding crisis. King Charles has yet to utter a single word. Buckingham Palace has maintained complete silence. There has been no official statement from the royal family. And it is precisely this silence that resonates more powerfully than any declaration. Some constitutional experts argue that this is one of the most sophisticated strategies in politics, a move calculated to perfection. Professor Sarah Matthews of the University of Oxford observed, "The king is acutely aware that if he speaks out, he risks dragging the crown into the political storm, inadvertently giving Starmer grounds to claim royal interference. Choosing silence is the wisest course of action for now. Yet there is more unfolding beneath that silence." A few insiders at the palace have disclosed that the king has in fact been personally wounded by Starmer's criticisms. One close confidant remarked, "It is precisely this silence that is allowing public anger to build up." With every hour that the monarchy does not respond, Starmer's remarks appear increasingly unreasonable and unfounded. Within Labour's leadership, anxiety has turned to panic. Veteran MPs who have stood alongside Starmer for years are beginning to question his judgment and his political instincts for survival. Sue Gray, the chief of staff once regarded as Starmer's closest ally, is said to have engaged in a heated row with him over his handling of the crisis. Rumours suggest Gray even threatened to resign, though she was later persuaded to stay on by several senior advisers. Yet the true storm now lies within Labour's parliamentary ranks. Just hours after the scandal broke, a WhatsApp group called Damage Control was created with the urgent purpose of salvaging the situation. More than 40 Labour MPs are now actively engaged in this private WhatsApp forum, debating everything from public statements to internal party turmoil. Veteran MP Diane Abbott is reported to have told colleagues bluntly, "In 4 decades of politics, I have never seen a leader so intent on self-destruction, and he is not only harming himself, he is dragging the entire party down with him." Discussions within the group have gradually shifted to the larger question: who will succeed if Starmer falls? A handful of names are already circulating. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy, and even former party leader Ed Miliband floated as a short-term caretaker option. Yet what makes the situation even more perilous than backbench criticism is the mounting pressure now emerging from within Starmer's own cabinet. According to multiple government sources, at least 3 senior ministers have voiced deep concern over the way Mr. Starmer is handling the current turmoil. It is reported that Transport Secretary Louise Hay left Downing Street with tearful eyes after a tense meeting with the Prime Minister. Some suggest she is reconsidering her own position in light of the incomprehensible chaos she is witnessing. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and long seen as one of Starmer's closest allies, has recently been entirely absent from efforts to defend him in public. Many interpret her silence as a deliberate attempt to put distance between herself and the heart of the crisis. Meanwhile, Angela Rayner has quietly adopted a firefighting strategy, meeting Labour MPs privately and urging them to stay calm and resolute. It is an unwritten rule in politics. There must always be a contingency plan should the leader falter. And while Labour is caught in a spiral of instability, Nigel Farage and Reform UK have seized the moment shrewdly. Farage has refrained from openly celebrating Starmer's misfortunes. Instead, he has cast himself as the defender of Britain's core values. Membership of Reform UK has soared, rising by 400% in just 3 days. Small donations have poured in, largely from voters disillusioned with the current system, who now view Reform UK as the last bastion of British tradition. Farage, with his instinctive feel for political timing, has responded like a seasoned master. Outside Reform UK headquarters, he delivered a speech framed by Union flags, a moment many hailed as the high point of his career. He declared that while others attacked the sovereign, Reform UK would always stand with the Crown. Where there are those who undermine the nation's institutions, they will step in to defend them. Where others forget the national identity, Reform UK will remember. The image of him standing proudly among the Union flags, speaking with clarity and conviction, has become a striking counter-symbol. While Labour flounders in a crisis over tradition, Reform UK has thrust itself forward as the guardian of the nation's core values. In this context, the Conservatives, despite their own internal difficulties, suddenly find themselves in a more advantageous position. Opposition leader Kemi Badenoch, while measured in tone and careful not to appear opportunistic, nevertheless delivered remarks of sharp political impact. She stated that the Prime Minister was displaying outright contempt for the constitutional monarchy, an institution millions of Britons still cherish and respect. This is not merely a matter of political skirmishing, it is a direct blow at the very foundations of democracy. Conservative strategists are now scrutinising whether this crisis could reshape the entire political landscape. A senior Conservative insider told me candidly, "If we were writing the script ourselves, we could not have come up with anything better." Labour, they argued, has inadvertently highlighted why it cannot be trusted with the nation's key institutions. This is no longer an internal party squabble. It is fast becoming a spectacle on the international stage. From foreign governments to Commonwealth royals, all have been stunned by the sight of a British Prime Minister publicly attacking his own head of state. When asked about the incident, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau responded mildly that he respects the central role of the constitution monarchy within parliamentary democracy. The words sounded measured, but everyone understood the implication. The British Prime Minister had lost control. Australia, however, was far less restrained. Opposition leader Peter Dutton launched a fierce attack on Starmer, calling his remarks shameful and claiming they undermined the respect Australians traditionally hold for Britain's leadership. Many in political circles believe that the next 48 hours will prove decisive in determining whether Starmer weathers the storm or enters history as the shortest-serving Prime Minister of the modern era. At present, 3 scenarios are being hotly debated among MPs in Westminster. Starmer issues a public apology and somehow scrapes through. He stands firm, but faces a vote of no confidence, or he resigns in order to save Labour's dignity. Sources at Buckingham Palace suggest that King Charles has prepared for every eventuality. Yet even royal patience has its limits. One close aide told me, "No king can endure this indefinitely." If the crisis drags on, the consequences could be unpredictable. This is not merely an ordinary political drama. It could mark the beginning of a historic turning point for Britain. The relationship between the monarchy and the elected government, delicately balanced for centuries, is under its most severe strain. Should Starmer survive, he will be permanently scarred politically, while the monarchy will have proven its resilience in the storm. But if he falls, the message will be unambiguous. Challenging the crown remains political suicide in Britain today. Whatever the outcome, one thing is certain: British politics will never be the same again. Has Starmer effectively brought his career to an end by confronting King Charles so openly? Can Labour recover from this constitutional shock? And most importantly, what will this mean for the future of the monarchy? What do you think? Share your predictions in the comments below. I will read them all. And if you want the earliest updates on what happens next, don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell. This story is far from over, and the next chapter may prove even more dramatic than anything we've seen so far. The battle for Britain's future is happening right now, and you will not want to miss a single moment.